Super Tuesday is underway, the make-or-break series of US primaries that will really put to the test Donald Trump's capacity to stay ahead of his Republican rivals, and for the Democrats determine whether Hillary Clinton can build on her victory over Bernie Sanders in South Carolina following her defeat in New Hampshire. Virginia kicked off the voting early on Tuesday, the first of more than 10 states where people will designate their preferred presidential candidate. Around a fifth of Republican delegates and a quarter of Democrats will have their say in the biggest single day of state-by-state nominating contests for November's election to succeed Barack Obama. The prospect of a Trump victory has alarmed senior Republicans who feel he'd be easily beaten by Clinton. She still has to see off Sanders and may be encouraged by polls giving her a lead in 6 southern states. Parties will nominate their presidential contender in July.
The UN Refugee Agency says crowded and appalling conditions for migrants have been fueling tensions and violence on the Greek border with the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. In a statement, the UNHCR warns that Europe is on the verge of a largely self-induced humanitarian crisis.
It's a nightmare. It was a nightmare. We wake up in a swimming pool. We forced to move our tent in a different place because under it was draining of water. It was a very bad night.
An estimated 22,000 migrants and refugees were trapped in Greece on Monday, with officials warning it could reach 70,000 in coming days. The UNHCR has also accused Austria and other countries along the Balkan migration route of breaking the law after they imposed restrictions on their borders. The United States says it considers the refugee crisis in Syria to be a global problem. Speaking in Washington after talks with his German counterpart, the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said he was concerned the Syrian government was creating obstacles to block aid deliveries.
And I want to be clear that the United States considers the refugee crisis to be global. The impact first was felt, obviously, by Jordan and Lebanon and Turkey, and they've borne an unbelievable burden in the course of these 4+ years of war.
Kerry also said alleged violations of the break in hostilities will be investigated, but added there's no evidence to suggest it will destabilize the fragile peace. Meanwhile, aid trucks carrying non-food items such as blankets have entered Muadamiyah, a suburb of Damascus, under siege by government forces.
Free after 6.5 years in prison. The former leader of the outlawed Basque separatist party, Batasuna, Arnaldo Otegi, was greeted by supporters shouting independence. Batasuna was considered by the authorities to be the political wing of the armed militant group ETA. All of these cameras recording mean and tell us that there are still political prisoners in the Spanish state, he says. 6.5 years ago they tried to imprison us, and they did it just because we bet on peace. And I want to congratulate all of you, as you were able to maintain this bet despite provocations. Peace is, of course, the path, but on this path we must take a bet until the end. Otegi was charged with attempting to reform the Batasuna party, which was outlawed in 2003. The armed militant group has been dealt numerous blows in recent years, with hundreds of arrests and seizures of weapons and property in both Spain and France. Hundreds of people have been killed in the struggle by ETA to create an independent Basque state.
We're near the Belgian city of Liège, and behind me you can see the nuclear power plant Tihange. A few days ago, a reactor block was again turned off to carry out checks. There are growing fears in the region that an accident could happen. Is the health and safety of citizens in danger? Next Tuesday, a court in Brussels will decide if the reactor should be closed down for good. But what do local residents think? I have no worries with respect to the plant. I trust in it. My father's working there, so I know more or less what's happening there. Let's also say there will be a problem with jobs. Where will the workers go if they close it down? Belgium denies there are any safety issues with the plant, although it plans to shutter its 7 nuclear reactors by 2025. We believe it works safely. We consider the degree of safety quite sufficient. But that's not gone down well across the border. The city of Aachen filed a lawsuit against the Belgian state. However, when there will be a case of a great technical incident, there's no real protection in terms of control of the situation. We'll suffer great damage here in the region. Therefore, the movement is so great today, striving for a shutdown of Tihange. I don't think the operators want us, the citizens, to understand what's really going on. More than 800,000 people have signed a petition calling for it to be closed down. I've read today in the newspaper that if there'll be an accident, the operators say they'll pay an amount of some 1.2 billion euros. I think this kind of damage cannot be calculated in money. We're exposed to a huge risk here. For now, the cross-border tensions look set to rumble on.
Germany's Federal Constitutional Court has begun a hearing on whether to ban the far-right NPD party. The session in Karlsruhe is set to last 3 days. A ruling isn't expected for several months. The move follows a referral from the Bundesrat, the upper house of parliament, which believes the NPD should be banned because it wants to destabilize and bring down the liberal democratic order in an aggressive and combative manner. The German government describes the far-right party as anti-democratic, xenophobic, anti-Semitic and against the constitution. But Chancellor Merkel declined to back the Bundesrat's move. In the country's recent history, parties have only been banned on 2 occasions, both in the 1950s. A previous attempt to ban the NPD in 2003 failed. Some experts and anti-racist campaigners believe it would be a bad idea now, arguing the priority should be to counter far-right ideology and stop attacks on refugees.
A new study by French scientists suggests that the Zika virus might cause a debilitating neurological disorder called Guillain-Barré syndrome. It comes after the virus, which is transmitted by mosquitoes, was declared last month an international public health emergency by the World Health Organization. Now researchers at the Paris-based Institut Pasteur say they've uncovered evidence that the virus might trigger Guillain-Barré syndrome, which leads to muscle weakness and, in severe cases, breathing problems requiring intensive care. It's a rare response to infection, which sees the immune system attacking peripheral nerves. Much remains unknown about Zika, including whether the virus actually causes microcephaly, a condition marked by babies being born with unusually small heads that can result in developmental problems.
Cars adrift in the torrent. Now the authorities in Peru is sending the military to help areas affected by floods that have afflicted several parts of the country. Scientists blame El Niño, the warm ocean current, for the heavy rains that turned roads into rivers in Arequipa. The southern province has been particularly badly hit. At least 2 people were reportedly killed. The Andean nation has struggled for over a week to cope with violent weather that's also caused landslides and power cuts. Residents in Tumbes, a coastal region in the northwest, were also left to survey the damage. Local media reported that 3,000 people in the area had been left homeless, with 30,000 affected in some way. The World Meteorological Organization has already said this year's El Niño is the strongest in over 15 years and could grow stronger still.